Starting with jazz guitar can feel overwhelming. There are so many things to practice, but most of them won't actually help you in the beginning. From teaching thousands of students, I've learned that it is essential to build a solid foundation of skills that work well together. And in this video, I'm going to give you a simple checklist to make sure that you're practicing the right things and not wasting your time. Now, in the first part of this video, I'm going to cut through the nonsense and just share a compact set of exercises. Then I'll dive into some hidden skills that jazz beginners often forget to develop and show you how to work on those. But the most important thing that you need to do isn't practice at all. One of the simplest but most overlooked ways to learn jazz is listening. Now, I'll keep this short, but don't underestimate how much you can gain just by listening to jazz. It's the easiest way to improve your phrasing, expand your repertoire, build a solo and vocabulary, and develop your taste so that you know how you want to sound. Just spend time with the music, get familiar with the sound, the artists, and the style. Ask yourself if you learned other styles without listening to them, and let me know in the comments if you did, because I kind of find it hard to imagine that anybody learned anything like that. Let's start with just busting a few myths about scales and some basic exercises before I talk about how to put it to use. When learning jazz, many beginners get caught up in modes, positions, and exotic scales, but this often leads to confusion and wasted time. You don't want to think about a piece of music as having 30 or 40 different scales if it's really in one key. Instead, focus on keeping things simple by focusing on the major scale and start with just one position. Now later we're going to explore how to link scales and arpeggios from the beginning as well. Now why the major scale? The major scale is the most fundamental and common scale. It's the foundation for chords, melodies and improvisation in jazz. Here's what to do. Pick a single position on the neck. Don't worry about covering the entire fretboard right away. Practice the major scale in that position slowly. Focus on playing cleanly and in time, making sure the notes connect smoothly. Listen to the scale as you play so that you really internalize the sound and learn the notes that you're playing. Stay aware of where you are on the neck. In the next section, I'm going to show you how to link scale and arpeggios because you need that for soloing. And by narrowing your focus, you'll start using the major scale in music instead of just getting lost in endless patterns or theoretical details. Arpeggios are essential to jazz vocabulary, but beginners often waste time practicing them very inefficiently, and I know I certainly started like that. But you can save a lot of time by just focusing on how the arpeggios are actually used in jazz solos. So they're played in root position, built from stacks of thirds, and often mixed with scale notes. The arpeggios that you want to focus on are seventh chords because they form the foundation of the jazz harmony that you see in songs. Now let me show you a step-by-step method that's immediately useful for solos. Step 1, start with the scale. Now from the previous section, you're already practicing the major scale. Step 2, learn diatonic thirds. These are useful melodic intervals and easy to add to your solos. Step 3, stack thirds to form triads. Diatonic triads are another essential building block for creating lines. Step 4, add one more third to create seventh chords. This gives you all the diatonic seventh chords within the scale. By practicing arpeggios this way, you link them directly to the scale, making them more intuitive and immediately useful in your playing. For example, you can take this C major 7 arpeggio, now turn it into a melodic line directly within the scale where you've learned it. This approach makes diatonic arpeggios efficient and practical, allowing you to use them in solos right away. Now, in contrast, learning full arpeggio positions means that you can't really connect them to the scales as easily, but the positions can still be useful later on. You'll see a similar principle with chords. Starting small and practical wins every time. To play jazz, you need chords, and it's best to start with chords that are clear and easy to play. Playing the chords yourself allows you to really hear the harmony and how it flows. And the best chords for this are the shell voicings, a simple 3-note version of 7 chords that leave out the 5th. To keep it practical, you'll want to work on these in the context of the scale, similar to what you did with the arpeggios. Start with the root on the 5th string, and then with the 3rd and the 7th on the middle string set. That sounds like this. And you of course also want to learn the version with the root on the 6th string, and then again the 3rd and the 7th on the middle string set. That will give you this set. voicings are easy to play and sound great, and once you're comfortable with them, start using them in a song. A simple tune like Perdido is a great place to begin. One of the best things about shell voicings is that you can build on them, so later you can add extensions, chromatic movement, and even bass lines to make your playing more colorful and interesting. And that leads me to something that I did completely wrong when I started learning jazz. Something that you can avoid to learn a lot faster.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.
The first time I tried to learn a jazz standard, I did everything wrong. I'd barely listened to any jazz, but I had a tape and a copy of an Ebersol book, which is a book with backing tracks for songs. And the first song in the book was Green Dolphin Street, and I was immediately interested in the complex chord progression that's at the beginning of that song. At the time, I'd learned to improvise by matching scales to chords, so my teacher would give me a chord progression and then write the scale for each chord underneath it. And that approach sort of worked for short, simple chord progressions, but Green Dolphin Street was just much more difficult. And when I tried to improvise over it, it was a disaster. I would get lost after just a few bars, and I had no idea how to navigate the changes. Now, looking back, I was of course missing some essential skills, which I'll actually discuss shortly, but the biggest mistake I made was skipping the melody. If I'd started by learning the melody, then everything would have been a lot easier. It's very difficult to imagine 2 bars of E flat major 7 out of nothing. But if you can hear the melody, then you can also hear how the harmony fits under it. And learning the melody is not just helpful, it's essential. Same thing goes with learning to play the harmony, as I demonstrated in the previous section. Now, another mistake that I made was picking a song that was too difficult. If you're starting out, choose an easy tune at a slow tempo. Pick something with fewer chords and simpler changes. You can tackle more complex songs later on once you're more comfortable with the process. And that is exactly why I created the Jazz Guitar Roadmap, a step-by-step course for learning jazz standards and building strong foundational improvisational skills. So far it's helped over 5,000 students, and it's incredible to see their progress as they post videos in the community. Now let's move on to some of the hidden skills that will make learning and improvising jazz so much easier. Knowing the arpeggios and playing them over a song is a great start, but turning that into a solo that sounds like jazz, that's a different challenge altogether. Beginners often fall into the trap of simply outlining each chord as it comes and playing something at the start of the chord and then waiting for the next one. For example, when improvising over Autumn Leaves, it might sound like this. I'm sure you can hear that there's absolutely no connection between the chords. The melody doesn't flow. It feels like each chord is its own isolated idea, almost like a new solo for every chord change. Now instead, you want to practice playing towards the next chord. For instance, a C minor 7 line should naturally lead into a clear F7 note, and an F7 melody should resolve smoothly into a B flat major 7 chord tone, like this. To build this skill, focus on target notes, which are specific notes that you aim for in the next chord. When starting out, just use the third of each chord as your target note, like I did in the example that you just heard, hitting the A on F7 and D on B flat major 7. The third is easy to hear, easy to hit, and provides a strong sense of connection between the chords. Now, once you're comfortable with that, you can expand and experiment with other target notes, creating more variation and complexity in your lines. Practicing this way will make your solos flow naturally and sound much more melodic. Phrasing can seem like a big mystery in jazz, but you can develop a few simple habits to make your solo sound 10 times better. One key tip: don't always end on long notes. Now, if you're coming from rock or blues, you might be used to just sustaining the last note of a phrase, but jazz is much more rhythmical, and long notes can make your lines feel static and unconnected to the groove. So instead, try ending phrases on short notes. This adds syncopation and makes your solo sound more dynamic and interesting. Here's an example with unclear rhythm. And here's a more syncopated and energetic version. To To internalize this, listen to your favorite jazz players with this in mind. You'll notice that they often end phrases on short, rhythmic notes. It's a small change, but it can make a huge difference. Once you can play the basic building blocks like scales and arpeggios, then the next step is to make them sound more musical by turning them into melodies. And there are of course countless ways to approach this, but since you're already working on arpeggios, then a great place to start is by using triplets to make your lines more dynamic and surprising. So here's a simple C major 7 arpeggio. First, practice just playing the arpeggio as an 8th note triplet and then resolve the top note down to the scale note below that. This creates a really nice melodic flow, and you want to work on creating lines like this. You can also add a leading note before the arpeggio to create movement and really emphasize the top note. And don't forget descending triplet arpeggios. They sound just as great and change up how your solos sound. Experimenting with these ideas will help you turn basic arpeggios into much more interesting melodies and giving your solos a stronger sense of rhythm and direction. And you of course need to go further than just playing the arpeggio. But where do you get the ideas for better melodies? Learning jazz isn't just about practicing, it's also about listening and studying great players. And the best way to improve your phrasing, timing and swing feel is by learning solos by ear and playing them with the recordings. But that can seem impossible, and you do need to ease into it so that you don't just waste time and finally give up. Start with easy solos that are short, practical and inspiring. In this video, I'm gonna share a list of great beginner-friendly solos to help you develop your phrasing and make real progress. The feeling when you know a solo is amazing, and you will never regret learning one. Learn jazz, make music.